Welcome to the Pastoral Perspectives Podcast. Our aim is to help Christians grow spiritually by bringing pastoral wisdom and biblical clarity to important issues of Christian faith and practice. Each episode offers a thoughtful, biblical, and pastoral take on a matter of Christian theology, church life, spiritual growth, or cultural relevance that is shaped by years of local church ministry. Pastoral Perspectives is a ministry of the pastors of Vista Bible Church in Lafayette, Colorado. Well, hey, welcome back to the Pastoral Perspectives Podcast. Here we are. We're back. You're
One more
back.
time.
It's time for another episode today. How are you?
Indeed it is. I'm good. Yeah. Not much to say. Just God is good, and I'm a worm, and he's very gracious and very kind, and so I'm good. Doing okay.
Amen.
How you doing?
I'm fine, but you're not a worm. You're a human made in the image of God.
Well, that's true.
I know what you mean, though.
It's a both and
Yes.
sort of situation, not an either or.
Yes.
I'm a wormy image bearer
There you go.
of God.
As am I. Dirty and nasty and smelly.
Kidding.
All right, let's get into what we want to talk about today.
Let's do it.
Um,
It's a good topic today.
yeah, this is another one of those ones that when we asked our church for just ideas and things that they are thinking through or would like to hear us talk about.
Yeah.
So this was one of those, and it's the topic of honoring your parents. And, you know, the person that asked the question was an adult, kind of thinking about honoring their adult parents, elderly parents even.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it's a topic that's relevant to all of us, just honoring your parents, no matter how old you are. If you have parents that are still here
Still living.
on this earth, we all need to think about this and try to do it. So we thought we could spend, a few minutes talking about that here, and hopefully it can be helpful to all of us and a blessing to our parents.
Yeah.
So
That's a good goal.
that's where we're going.
Like it. Well, where does the command to honor our parents come from, Kyle? Why do we have to honor our parents?
I thought it came from mom and dad.
Yeah.
No, right. That's not where
Your
it comes
parents made it up.
from. Right. And so that's important to remember, right? Because our parents are the ones who usually remind us that we should be doing this, especially if we're still young and we're in the house. But the reality is this command comes from God's word,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in
Sure
all
does.
seriousness. So the fifth commandment is where this comes from, as it's given to us in Exodus chapter 20. The fifth commandment is written this way. It says, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. And it's not just an Old Testament thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
You see it in the New Testament as well. So you're probably familiar that Paul talks about this. He gives, in the book of Ephesians, he gives instruction to children, and then he references the commandment as well. So this is Ephesians 6, verses 1 through 3. He says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you, and that you may live long in the land.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I think maybe one point to make just kind of at the outset is how, in the Ten Commandments, if you take the Ten Commandments as I do to some degree, I think we do together, certainly that the Ten Commandments are somewhat of a summary of God's moral law, moral will for his people. Might be applied in the Old Covenant age differently than in the New Covenant age, but if you take it as a summary of what God expects of his people, what God requires of all men, then it's noteworthy that he included this, right? Because
Yeah.
he didn't include everything. There's
Right.
10 commands that he includes.
Yeah.
And this is the first command that he includes that's related to our relationships with other people. The first four are essentially regarding our worship of God and our keeping him first place. Right after that, though, as he turns to matters of human relationships, the first relationship God targets is the one we have with our parents.
Yeah.
Not even the one that parents have with their kids, which is interesting, but the one that children have with their parents. That's the first relationship God is concerned to teach us about.
Yeah.
So obviously, children under the authority of their parents, children that are still living in the home, who aren't yet adults, they haven't reached adulthood. And by adulthood, I'm not just talking about an age, right? I think it's you're off on your own. You're providing for yourself. You're working. You're being an adult.
Yeah.
Children that are still in the home, you're obviously commanded to honor your father and mother.
Right.
But what's also interesting is that the command doesn't really make a distinction, right, between minors and adults. So that's a noteworthy observation.
Right.
This command really doesn't go out of style.
Yeah. Right.
As long as
Right.
you have parents, then you have to honor them
Yep.
according to God. So what do we want to do in this episode?
Well-
we could just say that, close, and be done.
See you next time.
Honor your parents. Let's pray.
Yeah. I mean, what we want to do is just try to offer some counsel in this episode to kids who are still living at home with dad and mom. Talk a little about how you can honor them in your life, because I think it looks, it takes specific forms for you. Then also talk about how we can honor our parents as adults who are on our own or possibly married even and have families of our own. How can we honor our parents as well? So just kind of trying to look at the commandment and apply it to everybody in our church. There's obviously going to be some things we miss, but that's the idea. Is just
But at
try
least the first half is for the kids.
that's right.
Yeah, we got a kid episode.
Pay attention, kiddos.
Two boring pastors talking to kids. This is better than Bluey, kids. This is better than what else did hey, what? We watch a lot of My Little Pony and Barbie.
I'm sorry.
It's just
I'm so
it's
sorry.
terrible.
We love you, Erica, but
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And she'll probably listen to this too. So yeah, they're great shows, babe. They're great shows. Daddy loves them too.
Okay. There you go. All right. So let's do that. The first part here. Let's talk about kids, not adults, living at home.
Yeah.
You're living under mom and dad. How can you honor your parents? And more importantly, in doing that, how can you honor the Lord as you interact with your dad and your mom?
Like it.
So what do you think? What are some ways that kids should be seeking to apply this?
Well, I mean, one thing you could keep in mind is just what the word honor means, right? Honor really just means like treat them as weighty, which is not a reference to their, body weight, but their importance. Like treat them as important. Treat them as if they are the most important people in your life. I think that's just a general way to think about this.
Sure.
So what does it mean practically? Well, respect them, show respect to them. Respect the fact that God has put them in your life as your parents. That's important. That means something. God has done that. God has put them into your life. So show respect to them, treat them as important.
Yep.
When they give instruction, when they give advice, when they give correction, I think the Bible would encourage you to listen to it, even if you don't agree with it, to listen to it, to take it seriously, and to like take it to heart. Think about what God might be teaching you through the instruction of your parents.
Yeah.
I think Proverbs is a great book for this, like especially the first few chapters of Proverbs. There's Solomon's like urging his sons, listen to me, listen to what I'm telling you, listen to what your mother's teaching you. Just listening to them, like actually listening to them is one way you can honor them. So if you want some homework, you should read Proverbs chapter 4. There's a important call to listen and take heed and pay attention to what your parents are teaching you. So those would be a couple of things. What would you add?
Well, I think I just jump on what you're saying, like listen to them. There's different ways to understand what someone means when they say you should listen to this.
Yeah, sure.
It's not just like let the words go into your ears and your brain understand what the words mean, but that's not what we mean by listen. And so like take careful heed is kind of more of the idea, like understand what they're saying, listen to it, but then also really consider it and take it really seriously.
Very seriously.
And don't just discount it or discard it because you're so annoyed with them, right? Or because you're struggling with whatever you might be struggling with as a child with your own agenda that your parents don't always support, right? So it's not just hearing what they said. It's not just being quiet when they're talking, but it's actually hearing and interacting and working through it really as an act of faith in God who's given you those parents, like you said.
Yeah.
That's really important. But yeah, that is good homework. Read chapter 4 of Proverbs. If you're still in your house as a kid, you still live with mom and dad and under their authority. It's not a long chapter. Just read it and take some time to sit on that. Think about it. Yeah.
Good.
But some other things you can do, or you should do, to the best of your ability when they ask you to do something or to not do something, then you should obey them. Like there's just no getting around that. That's what God's word calls you to. If they're not asking you to sin or do something that clearly dishonors the Lord, you should do that. And that is a way to honor them.
And not do it, kicking and screaming and yelling and fighting and scratching, but do it happily, do it willingly.
Yeah, and that requires a change of heart, right, between you and God. And it's not always going to be easy, and you're not always going to have a perfectly happy heart, but you're fighting for that. You're working on that. You're asking the Lord to help you do that, and you're watching him change you as you rely on him for that. So yeah, that's one thing. Another thing I think that's important, really important, is how you communicate with them. Obviously, parents have a responsibility to communicate with you in a wise and helpful way, but then so do you. So I think when you are talking, even about things that are uncomfortable or stressful or that you don't enjoy, speak to them in a reasonable, humble way. And that means even when you're disagreeing with them, don't raise your voice, don't start screaming, just keep things calm. Do what you can to keep things calm and reasonable and, like I said, humble, I think that goes a long way to show honor to your parents, and it shows honor to the Lord. It's an expression of self-control, to be able to communicate like that in situations that are difficult. So I would encourage you to think about how you communicate with your parents.
Yeah. And we know, obviously, Kyle and I are both parents. We know that we mess up and we make mistakes and we're not always right. And that there's going to be things we ask of our kids that, your parents know. There's things we're going to ask of our kids that they're not going to agree with. And honestly, I mean, even as a parent, I'm okay if my kids disagree with me, I'm okay with that. It doesn't always mean, they're going to get their way, but along this, along the lines of communicating with them, like if you disagree, maybe you could even just ask them, hey, could we talk about this? Would you guys be willing
Yeah.
to talk about this with me more? Help me understand where you're coming from. Or I think I have something to share that might, help you understand where I'm coming from. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to ask if you can talk more about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's totally fine. Just try to communicate with respect, even if
Exactly.
you disagree.
And we are parents, but we also have been children
Yeah.
in our parents' homes,
Yeah.
It wasn't that long ago, believe it or not, kids.
Like last week for Kyle. Last week.
So, but like when I became a believer and when I was saved, that was one of the areas I was super convicted about was like how I spoke to my mom and communicated with her. So, God really changed my heart in that, and he can work in your life as well. So I just wanted you to know, like, I'm familiar with the challenges of living as a
Totally.
maybe a teenager, where you want to kind of get out and live your own life and kind of call the shots, but
Yeah.
you're still under your parents' authority. And so I understand that. And I just want you to know that. And
And
we're
your
still,
parents understand it too,
yeah, they've been there. Yeah.
They've all been there.
But they also understand a whole lot more about life too.
Yeah.
So anyways, but the commandment's still there. It's a struggle, but we're called to do this. So that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah. We talked about a few more things, I guess, some practical ways to do this. Like one question, let's come back to this one.
Okay.
But one thing you could ask yourself is like when you speak about your parents to your friends, that's a big thing, right?
Yep.
When you speak about them to your friends, do you communicate that respect, that honor, as if they're very important, or something else? Do you communicate that you're mad and annoyed with them and they're idiots and they don't know anything? And
Yeah, right.
how do you talk about them to others? When you receive consequences for something you've done wrong according to them or failed to do, how do you talk about that, with other people? How do you talk about that with your friends? Are you trying to help your friends see that your parents are wise, or are you trying to get people to think that they're fools? That's a good thing to think about.
Yep.
Maybe also, do you ever tell your parents that you appreciate them? I know that's radical. Like it's a radical thought that you might actually vocalize your honor towards them. All these things that we've kind of talked about are like, how do you deal with disagreements and stuff? But do you ever just voice appreciation for them? That's a good thing to start practicing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things like that. And if you can't appreciate anything about them, what do you do then?
Well, first, before we talk about that, it's good to express appreciation, like for specific things too. Like think about your parents and what about them specifically can you appreciate? Try to spend some time thinking about some things you actually really do appreciate, and if they were
Probably
different,
more than you might think.
yeah, if they were
emotional.
different, you might actually, your life could be a lot more difficult or a lot harder or whatever.
Right.
So think about specific things, and expressing appreciation for someone or for things about them is not the same as saying, hey, you're perfect. I have no problems with you at all.
Good point.
You can have struggles with your parents and things that you don't appreciate and still express appreciation to them. You can still honor them. So don't let, whatever challenges you face prevent you from expressing honor and appreciation to them.
That's really good.
Now, back to your question though, if you can't you're trying to think about, okay, what do I appreciate about my parents? And I can't bring myself to say it to them. What do you think that says about your heart? I think that's the question you need to ask yourself. What does that say about what's going on in here? And ask the Lord for help to understand that. Why is it that you can't do that? Is it really that there's literally nothing honorable about your parents? Most likely not. So what's going on in your heart? And the Lord can help you see that. You know?
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's not necessarily, if you can't find anything that you appreciate about them, that says probably more about you and the state of your heart than it does about them. Most likely. There's more going on in your heart that you need to look at and deal with. That's more likely than that they're just total buffoons.
Yeah. Yeah.
That have no good qualities.
Right.
That's a good point. So, like, I just, what all this comes back to, right, is that principle that God is the one who's put your parents over you. All this seems like just, you have to just keep these commands for no reason. They're just to make your life miserable or whatever. But honoring your parents really does train you to honor God.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Kyle said that earlier. It's a way to submit to God's authority in your life. And one reason I think that's important is like, because in our day, it seems like younger generations are becoming more and more suspicious and critical and unappreciative of previous generations, the generations that have come before them. Like, just more and more and more, we think, anything that our parents did, anything their generation did needs to be thrown away, and we got to start all over. And, that attitude that anyone in any kind of power or whatever needs to be overthrown, and, anyone under them is an oppressed person that needs to be liberated. And like, if you take that with your parents, which a lot of people do, it can be very destructive. God has put authority over us, and some of that authority is in generations that have come before us, our parents, and things that they've done, things that they've built, things that they've done to pass on to us. There's a lot of good that previous generations have done. And God wants us to honor them and not totally disregard them,
Yeah.
Just because a previous generation did something doesn't mean we shouldn't keep doing it. There's a lot of good that's been handed down to us. And so anyway, maybe that's a little off topic, but there's an attitude that I think this command really, really deals with, that attitude of just distrusting authority and, wanting to be free of all authority and just do whatever you want. That's not good for you. That's not good for any of us.
Right.
We're all meant to live under authority. And that's because we live in a world that is ruled over by God and not by us. And we need to learn that. And one of the ways God teaches us that is through our relationship with our parents. So he's teaching you good things under their authority. And if you just try to get out from under that authority, it's not going to help you ultimately. Maybe that's a rant that's not necessary, but
Rant complete.
Rant finished.
All right. So kids, young teens, young adults in the house, living with dad and mom, that's for you to consider. But let's talk about now, how do we honor our parents as an adult, So we're obviously, it has to take different forms because life changes and you don't share the same home with them. You're in charge of your own family or your own life if you're single, whatever. form it takes exactly. So what are some general principles that we can apply as adults to show honor to our parents?
That's good. I mean, a lot of the same things, right? Just without the command to like obey
Yeah.
so much. Like you still should value their input. You still should take their word seriously. You know, you still should show respect to them as best you can. You still should speak kindly and respectfully to them when you speak to them.
Mm-hmm.
Same with the ways you speak about them. You know, like you might have had bad parents, or you might have had unbelieving parents, or you might have had foolish parents or whatever, but you can still speak about them in a way that doesn't you know, empty them of all dignity.
Sure. Yeah.
So you should speak about them respectfully.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things that come to my mind initially.
Yeah. And I think, one of the ways to show honor, and I think ways that they can perceive you doing that, is probably to include them in your life, in ways that make sense.
Yeah.
This is obviously going to look different for everybody, but think about ways to include them in your life.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way. Think about ways to communicate appreciation to them. There's lots of different ways to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Pray for them.
That's good.
That's something they don't see, but something that definitely shows
God
honor.
sees it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Pray for them. Don't forget about them in your prayers. And just make an effort to spend time with them if you can. If you're physically nearby,
Mm-hmm.
then you should. If you're not, you can. We live in the day and age where there's the phones. There's video
ways
calls.
to do it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that I think older parents especially would probably agree that the time factor seems to become more and more important the later you get into life. Like that time becomes really precious to them. That's a very simple way you can show honor to them. Those are good. Those are really good.
Yeah. Okay. But then there's like sort of specific situations that we could also comment on for being an adult with parents, that maybe we could talk about specific ways to show honor
Mm-hmm.
in those particular situations. So the first one I thought of is when your parents are believers.
Yeah.
There's specific ways I think you can show honor to them if you have believing parents, that's a great blessing.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
Huge blessing. I mean, just enjoy fellowship with them, right? Talk about the Lord with them. Not everyone gets to do that with their parents. That's huge. Talk about what God is teaching you, what he's doing in your life, asking them how you can be praying for them, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Just enjoy Christian fellowship with them. If you're able to worship with them, at least on occasion, that's a cool experience. That's good.
Yeah.
Things like that. You can pray with them. That's maybe not something you get to do with unbelieving parents all the time.
Right.
But and it doesn't have to be like, big things, but just enjoy the times you can go to the Lord together, around tables, and food and things like that, or in harder situations or whatnot. Like you can pray with them.
Yeah.
What else? Ben?
Well, if assuming they were believers when they were raising you,
Mm-hmm.
I think one huge blessing to them, a way to show honor, is to tell them how much you appreciate
Yeah.
being raised in a Christian home. It was an imperfect home. Doesn't mean you can't say that it was a blessing, that
Right.
you got to be raised in a Christian home. So
Good.
I think if you told them that on a somewhat regular basis,
Mhm.
they'd probably be deeply encouraged and really appreciative of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are a few things, but
So
But
that's
then,
for believing parents.
yeah,
Yeah.
then you might have unbelieving parents.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit different. How do you show honor to them? Obviously, all the things we said at the beginning can apply to any adult parent,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's believer or unbeliever. But there's specific challenges to navigate when your parents don't believe in Christ and you
Mm-hmm.
do. So, in that situation, I still think we're called to honor them. I think there is a danger. Some Christians, um, I've observed, will take the fact that their parents are unbelievers as sort of a free pass to not have to honor them,
Mm.
which I don't think is the right path to take.
There are no character qualifications attached to the fifth commandment.
Yeah.
Honor your father and mother if they're decent, believing, noble, respectful people. You
Right.
don't, it's just honor them.
Yeah.
Regardless.
So I still think you can show honor to
Mhm.
parents who are unbelieving, so even if you don't share complete like-mindedness with them spiritually, you can still show honor to them. So think about how you can do that. And
Yeah.
I do think that there's going to be lots of different ways to do that based on the relationship and based on the parents. But my main concern is that we are giving thought to how to honor them
Yeah.
and not just thinking I don't have to do that because they're not believers.
Right.
And sharing the gospel is a way to honor them, right? It's an expression of love. And
in meaningful ways and
meaningful, loving, important ways like that. And if they've rejected it and they continue to reject it, you can still show them respect and appreciation and share family time with them. You can still love them and serve them, even though they haven't come to Christ yet.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, even though there's not like some direct passage about this, one that comes to mind is like 1 Peter 3, where Peter's, counseling believing wives with unbelieving husbands, that there's some measure of authority going on there over through the husbands over the wives. And what does he tell the wives to do? He says, basically don't beat them over the head with your Bible and don't keep pestering them and, poking and prodding them about Christ verbally. Just live a peaceful, quiet, submissive, joyful life with them and around them. And God might use the witness of your life to sort of, burr the hunger to know him.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a good role to take with a parent that you've shared the gospel with, but that openly rejects it and doesn't want anything to do with it. I think you can still live a joyful Christian life around them when you are around them. Show them kindness and grace and all of that. And God might use that. He might use that to awaken something in them.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the case. And yeah, just to reiterate, all the things we've mentioned already, the initial things, these should apply here too.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, another clear sort of season of life, I guess, is one when you have elderly parents who are dependent. They're having trouble functioning independently, and they're approaching the end of their earthly lives.
Right.
That brings in new considerations and challenges and ways that we need to consider how to honor our parents. So,
right.
One verse I think that is relevant to this is in 1 Timothy chapter 5 in verse 8. And let me just read that real quick. It says, "But if anyone does not provide for his relatives and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." And, that passage comes in the context of, Paul helping the church think through how to care for widows who don't have anyone else to care for them. So they have no family
Mm-hmm.
to speak of that could, step in and help.
Right.
And the principle here is if they do have family that can step in and help, they should be doing that. And the church
Yeah.
shouldn't be taking on the burden, the full
Yeah.
burden of that. So, I think this has application to our parents on some level.
No doubt. Yeah.
Doesn't provide for his relatives. We need to consider that. We have some responsibility to care for our parents,
Mm-hmm.
Who are elderly, who are dependent. And that is a major way to show honor to them,
Yeah.
So do they need help? Do they need someone to care for them as they get older? Is dad or mom living alone? How can we honor them? And of course, again, these are going to be situation specific sort of
Yeah.
questions that
No
we
doubt.
can't speak to, but
And you can't necessarily do everything for them, right? You may not have the means to do that. You may have your own challenges going on that
yeah,
preclude you from jumping in there and trying to take over the situation or whatnot. Or there may be other siblings who are in a better position to give more direct help or whatever. But I think the bottom line there is that you should be involved somehow.
yeah,
Even if you can't do everything, what can you do? That's the question. Find a way to show love, show concern, care, and all of that for them in meaningful ways, practical ways.
yeah,
So, that can look very different in very different situations, right? And there's no one right way.
yeah,
But if you're in the same area as them, are you going to see them? Are you trying to see them? If you don't live near them, are you trying to communicate with them somehow? Trying to talk with them, trying to be present, listening to them, hearing what's going on with them, at least sympathizing with them and things like that. We know the range of situations is very wide, right?
yeah, right.
But how can you show love to your parents in that situation? That's the real question.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think remembering, as you do that, you want to remind them they're not forgotten. I think
Mhm.
that's a regular struggle for parents as they get older and the kids are in the thick of life. They're super
Yeah.
busy and
Yeah.
it's hard, so then they feel forgotten.
Yep.
Of course they're not, but we also have to show them and remind them
Yeah.
that they're not
Yeah.
practically in some ways. So that's another sort of season of life. Then there's also a very real situation that I think is not uncommon at all.
Mm-hmm.
That is, okay, you're an adult and you have parents that are difficult to get along with for whatever reason and whatever that looks like. But it's a challenge to get along with them and to interact with them. How do you honor your parents when that's the situation?
Mm-hmm.
So before we talk about it, I thought we could look at a couple passages
Yeah.
that I think can help us, navigate this.
Yeah.
And then we can talk a little bit more about it. So why don't you read the first one there?
Yeah. So one is Romans chapter 12, verse 18. And it's in the context of learning how to love people of all sorts. And it says in verse 18, if possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. And there's a lot there, right? If it's possible, then live peaceably with people. As much as it depends upon you, make sure you're doing your part to live peaceably with people. And the all is significant, right? Because it's non-discriminate. So it's whoever it is, try to live peaceably with them. And I think the so far as it depends on you also indicates that your concern should be to honor God first and foremost, to obey Him. That's what depends on you. their response, their reaction, their, how they receive you is not your job.
Right.
It's not your concern. Doing what God commands is. And so you do what God commands you to do toward people, no matter who they are, no matter how hard they are to love. You try to honor God in your relationship with them in hopes that you can live in relative peace with them.
Yeah, that's really good.
So that's a good verse.
Really good. Another one is in Colossians 3, starting at verse 12. It says, "Put on then as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, compassionate hearts, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another. And if one has a complaint against another, forgiving each other, as the Lord has forgiven you, so you also must forgive." So, and this is a passage given primarily in the context of the church among Christians, but it certainly can apply to how we interact with our parents.
Mm-hmm.
So be patient, be forbearing with the difficult mom or dad that you have.
Mm-hmm.
If they're the type of person that they're always grumpy or complaining or snapping at you, you need to respond graciously and don't return the same back to them. If they're the type that's always right and don't really seem to listen to you when you talk, or at least not to receive or really consider what you have to say, forbear and show love to them anyways. Yeah, it's hard, but this is following Christ's example of loving and serving his enemies who killed him, even going to the cross for us while we were yet sinners. If he could do that, we can certainly bear with difficult parents.
Yep. That's convicting. And I haven't reached the elderly years yet. I'm squarely in middle age, and I can already see the tendencies to grumpiness and cynicism, and you're getting tired, and so if for no other reason, you can bear with them because they've lived some life and they've gone through some things, and they're tired. They're near the end and they're worn down, and not in every case. Like, not saying any hard to deal with parent is old, right? Or elderly or whatever, near the end. But in the case of those who are, if you haven't had to live as long as they have yet, then maybe bear with them and wait till you get there and see how you're doing.
Sure.
At their age.
Yeah, that's a good word. I think just try to think of ways to honor them in spite of the difficulty.
Yeah.
And then if you need to, maybe you need to maintain some appropriate boundaries. That'd be situation specific, but do what you can.
Yep. That's good.
Okay, well, as we're kind of getting close to wrapping this up, there's one more category that I thought is worth mentioning. And that is, what about parents who abused or harmed you when you were under their authority? Like, how does that come into play? Does it still apply?
Mm-hmm.
And really, I just wanted to put it here at the end to say that it's probably too complex to really get into in this episode, so because each relationship's unique, needs prayerful attention. So if you're asking that question, just consider how you might show honor to your parents here. It may be that the only way to show honor to them is to just pray for them.
Yeah.
That's entirely possible.
And that may be legitimately enough before God to just pray for the good of their souls and leave it to the Lord.
Yeah. So we're just acknowledging here that's a very much more complex topic, and we're not really getting into that.
Mm-hmm.
But at least consider it.
There's probably things you can apply that we've said, to a situation like that, but you have to do it with some discernment. We're not saying everything here would apply to those situations necessarily. So you have to sort through that.
Yep.
For sure.
Yeah, and we're always willing to talk further with you in real life and not on a podcast. if you're in our church. So feel free to,
Prefer that, really.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk more about your specific situation, then
Mm-hmm.
you're more than welcome to do that. So, yeah, if you are a person who has a still living dad or mom, just consider how you can honor them. Hopefully this has been helpful in some way. You know, these relationships can be messy, really messy, but that doesn't negate the command. And really, that's probably why there is a command. 'Cause
Probably why there has to be a command.
these are messy relationships, right? The Lord wants us to put effort into showing honor to our parents.
Yeah.
Because it's so often like against what our pride wants to do, what our flesh wants to do. So we need to humble ourselves and honor our parents in ways that ultimately honor the Lord.
Yeah. And that's the goal, right?
Yep.
Just to honor him.
That's right.
If you're seeking to honor him, you're going to try to honor them. So
Okay.
that's good. Now I'm going to make Erica listen to this episode and apply it. Looking forward to that.
Thanks for listening, watching. Erica, thank you especially. And we'll look forward to next time. We'll talk about something else. See you then.